friends, Deanna here today, and you all know I love hacking patterns. I love mix and matching patterns together. So today we're going to do one of those mix and match hack patterns together and add a hacked sleeve because that's what I love to do. And I love to be able to show you how you can grab Ellie and Mac patterns, hack them together to create your own creation. Whatever is in your mind, you can create. So let me tell you what I'm going to do and let's get started. So as all of us, sometimes we sit there and we scroll through Pinterest, we scroll through Google, we scroll through images of inspiration. I love doing that. I love going through Instagram and just finding inspiration from other sewists or just random outfits online. And so sometimes I'll see something and I'm like, that looks so gorgeous. I bet I can make that. And so that's what happened with this one. It's a top, and I'm gonna try to post a picture. I think I took a screenshot, so if I did, I'm gonna post it right here. It's a dress that has a line, look like a line bodice with this cute ruffle sleeves and a tiered bottom of the dress. And so I thought, oh my word, that's kind of what the 90s dress and the Staycation dress look like with some cute gathered sleeve, which we've done that before. We've done those kind of sleeves before in a hack tutorial a while back, but this time I'm gonna make them lined and I'm gonna show you how I'm going to create those. And then I thought, I can so pull that off. So today we are mixing up the 90s dress and I love the 90s dress and the Staycation dress, and we're gonna create this beautiful dress. Now for the 90s dress, because it does have a little bit of a higher curved bust, I'm going to just lower that and make it straight down where the side seams end for the bodice. I'm gonna show you that. So that way it's more straight right here instead of being a curved, and so the back and the front will be the same, just a straight curve right here, pretty much right below the bust. So that's what I'm going to do. That's the only thing I'm going to change, and then the bottom of the Staycation is going to stay exactly the same because of the fact that this Staycation is a gathered skirt. I'm going to end up gathering it to the width of my bodice, so it's going to match up perfectly, I think. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to cut my fabric. I'm going to show you how I'm going to cut that bodice of the 90s dress, and then we'll talk about sleeves. We'll probably do them in set, so we'll probably do those sleeves after we create the bodice. So let me get to cutting. Okay, so as you can see, my Staycation dress pattern kind of does this little curve thing here, and I don't want the curve. I want it to stay straight. So all I'm going to do when I go cut up my pattern piece, I'm just going to use a ruler and go straight out to the center. So it's just gonna go straight. It's not gonna curve up, it's just gonna go a straight front. So that's all I'm doing to change this design. So let's go ahead and cut that. And again, for the skirt, I'm just doing the Staycation 3 layers, 3 tiers, and they're just gonna stay the same. So let's cut that out. All right, now that that's all cut up, let me talk to you about the sleeve. There are different ways to do a flutter sleeve. We do have a tutorial on our YouTube channel about how to grab your sleeve pattern and like split it and open it wide so it flutters. So that's one way to do it. Now I want to try a different way. I never really tried this method. I've done something kind of like it, but I've never tried it quite this way. But I think for the look I want to have, this is what I want to do. So I'm gonna try it and we're gonna do it together. I'm gonna see if I fail. And if I don't, then now we've got another cool way to do this flutter sleeve. If I fail, then just revert to the other video and use that information. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab my pattern and I'm gonna measure my sleeve arm side area to see how big it is. It's 8.5 inches, but that's the front. And so the back is another 8.5 inches. So that's 17 inches, right? 8 plus 8 is 16, plus the half and half is 17. That's how I think of it in my head. And if I'm wrong, I just looked real real foolish on camera. I do that all the time. It's fine. Okay, so let's say it is 17 inches. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to double that, or 1.5 that. Actually, let's do 1.5 that. Because what I wanna do is I want it to be gathered here at the top, so it flutters out a little bit, but I don't want the sleeve to be super long. I just want it to be like a flutter sleeve. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to, instead of 8.5 times 2, which would be double, I'm gonna do 8.5 times 3, so that's 3 times. So that's going to be 25.5. So 25.5 is going to be what I want the width of my sleeve to be. So what I can do is 25.5 divided by 2. So that way I'm gonna do that. Okay, so I went ahead and did that operation on my calculator because I knew I couldn't figure that out in my head. So 25.5 divided by 2, is that the number I said? Whatever number I said. Divided by 2 is 12.75. So 12 3/4. So I'm gonna fold this in half, my fabric. We're all just kind of going for it, and we'll see if it works out. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. And I'm gonna measure 12.75, like right, I folded it like right at 12.75, but I need a little bit more. 12.75. Now the pattern, when I measured it, already includes the seam allowance. So that's why I'm not adding seam allowance. So if you're wondering like, don't you need seam allowance? Usually you do, but because I measured the pattern with the seam allowance included, then I'm not adding seam allowance. So now I've got it folded. And I'm going to do is I'm gonna grab a ruler. Again, I've never done this, so it's just in my brain, and I'm like, this should work, I think. So what we're doing is I'm gonna grab my ruler. I'm gonna make a straight edge first. It's not quite long enough to make a 12 3/4 edge, but I'm gonna do it anyway. The edge, make the edge straight. It wasn't straight. All right, still not straight because the line is not matching up correctly. So let's move it down a little bit so we can match it up and make it straight. All right, so then I've got 12 and 15 is what it is over here. And now I'm gonna go up 4 inches because that's how much of a ruffle I wanted to hang out. So, and I'm gonna subtract seam allowance for that as well. So, and I'm subtracting almost a whole inch seam allowance or a 1/2 inch seam allowance depending on how much seam allowance you're gonna use, because I'm going to line this. So I'm gonna cut 4 of this. I'm gonna sew them together, right sides together, all 4 of them, and fold it, and then it's like a lined cap sleeve, and then I'm gonna sew it onto my shoulder. So I need seam allowance for sewing them together, and then seam allowance for the cap. So my 4 inches, it's including that seam allowance. So you have to remember that. So I'm gonna go up 4 inches from the edge, and here's 4 inches right here. So you can mark that 4 inches. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, it's gonna be a flutter. So I'm gonna start here, the 4 inches, and it's slowly gonna go down to where my ending spot is. Now, it probably is best to make yourself a pattern piece with a piece of paper or whatever. I'm really bad. I just kind of go for things. So I'm just marking my fabric. 4 inches is right here is where it's gonna start. And we're kind of going down towards, starting at the 4 inches and kind of going down towards the 12 inches over here. So you gotta make sure that it goes all the way down to the 12.75, and it's coming all the way up to that 4 inches. And my ruler's kind of not straight, so I need to make sure that it does that like straight edge. See how it's just like, droop? I'm gonna cut it. This is a water soluble marker, by the way. And this is gonna be my pattern piece. So this is my flutter sleeve. So what's gonna happen is I'm gonna sew this with the other piece that I'm gonna cut out the same size, and then I'm going to sew them together, and then I'm gonna gather this cap right here. So when I sew it on, it's gonna give me a little flutter. Like this side right here is where I'm gonna sew it together. Let me make all the pieces and then I'm gonna show you how I sew them together. I'm kind of just using this as a pattern piece. right, so here's my pieces. And so I'm gonna lay it out. This fabric is wanting to roll. Don't do this to me. So here's the piece. This is gonna be my outer edge. This is right here at the top is gonna be my shoulder seam. So I'm going to place them together, right sides together, and I'm gonna sew at the outer edge. What's gonna be fluttering out, I'm gonna sew that right sides together right there. And then the top will be, you could baste the top together and then gather it. Hold on, let me just do this. All right, so at that edge, I'm gonna sew it together. Then I'm gonna turn it around, and this side right here, which is my cap, my sleeve area, that is going to get basted together and kind of and gathered, so when I sew it onto my sleeve, it will be like a gathered little cap thing. Okay, so I'm gonna show you that in a minute. What I'm gonna do first, so I can show you exactly what it's gonna look like, I'm going to go ahead and start sewing up my pattern pieces, my whole dress up like it does. So the 90s dress is gonna be sewn, the bodice is gonna be sewn just like it is on the 90s dress, except for when I attach sleeves, I'm gonna attach these instead of the 90s dress. And then the bottom of the staycation dress is gonna be sewn, gathered, attached, just like you would do it in this staycation dress. So I'm gonna go real quickly and show all that. I'll show it on here, but I'll just go real quickly, and then when we come back to the sleeves, I'll finish explaining how to do the sleeves. This is such an easy hack, a super quick, and I think it's gonna turn out super cute. Let's hope. We're sewing the front and back outer at the shoulders, right sides together, and the front and back liner at the shoulders, right sides together as well. I'm also gonna sew the sleeves while I'm over there. While I'm at it, I'm also going to sew the skirts, right sides together, the skirt panels. Now I'm going to flip this little flutter sleeve over and steam that top seam, and then I'm gonna find the half and just kind of mark where the half is, and then put in a gathering stitch so we can gather this whole sleeve. While I'm over there, I'm also going to gather the top of my skirt. Oh, this is the extra fabric I don't need right here. I'm gonna gather, actually I'm going to clip the center of my skirt and my skirts and gather them, put a basting stitch at the top to gather them. You can gather them however you wanna gather them. I'm just gonna do a basting stitch, which is a long straight stitch on my sewing machine, and gather that way. So I'm gonna put in that gathering stitch on both layers, both tiers, and on the sleeves. And I'm also going to sew up the tops right sides together at the neckline. So that's prepped for when I come back to put the sleeves on and attach the skirt. All right, so now that I've got all that figured out, when you grab your bodice after we sew the neckline, and you could have sewn it with a sewing machine. If you did it with a sewing machine, a stretch stitch, and you trim down the allowances or whatever, that works fine. But I find that doing it with a serger works fine for me. So here's our bodice. And so now I'm gonna open it up, right side up, and here's my arm side right here. So now I'm going to grab my sleeve. Hold on, let me set this up real nicely. I'm gonna grab my sleeve. I'm gonna place it right sides together on top of this arm side. So I'm gonna match up right where that center notch I made. And then I'm going to gather it to fit. I'm gonna pull my basting stitch. Come on. And I'm going to give it a little gather so that it'll fit my shoulder seam. Now I don't want it super gathered here at the end, so it's just gonna be straight here at the end basically. I'm gonna clip it to the end, the edge, but the rest of it is gonna have this little gather. Look at how cute that's already looking. Bring that gather up a little bit. So it's not so gathered at the armpit area, but it's more gathered at the top area. And we're gonna do the same for both sides. Let me move this gather more this way. So see how over here by the armpit area is gonna be more smooth because that's gonna be underneath your arm, so you don't want it to be like super tight right here at the arm, but up here it's got this really nice gather. I hope that works out because it's gonna look so cute if it does work out. I'm gonna do the same for the other side, and you might have this little bit of like a notch right here. You can just trim that off when you're done with that because that's just gonna get eaten off when you sew it on. When you sew the sides together. That's just like your seam allowance right there. Okay, now if you wanted to do this lined, you would only attach it to one side. Actually, let's do that because then we can have it lined and I don't have to see my seam. All right, y'all. My camera kicked me out and did not record me doing this process where I went ahead and sandwiched it between and did the burrito method on one side. So I'm going to show you what it looks like when I pull it out, and I'm going to do it on the other side and show you how to do it on the other side so that you will have that. Good thing I didn't do both of them on the same time because you wouldn't have been able to see. So when I do the burrito method, I have no seams on either side of my ruffled little sleeve. That's gonna be so cute. All right, I'm gonna show you on this side. So I'm gonna open up my sleeve like this, my arm side. Here's my liner and my outer together. This is my arm side. I'm gonna open it up and pull that back to the back so I only have one layer right here. I'm gonna grab my ruffle and I'm gonna do the same thing that we did earlier. Place it here and then gather it together to fit. All right, now that it's attached to that first layer, I'm gonna roll up the other side. It's just kind of gonna roll in here. Don't get it close to that because you don't want it to attach. And here's the other side. Like this was the bottom part. And then we're gonna attach them right sides together so that we're sandwiching this ruffle in there. Like this. And that's called the burrito method. Then I'm gonna go sew it and this will be like a burrito sandwich right here. And then we'll pull it out and you won't have that seam showing. All right, so now that that's sewn, we can go ahead and pull it through. And now we have our bodice. And our sleeves are lined. So cute. Now you can line your bodice as well by opening it like this and sewing those sides together, those side seams right here like this, matching it up and sewing the sides. So this, and then we'll come back and attach the skirt and we'll be done. Bodice is completed. Oh my goodness, this would even make a really cute top too. All right, now we're going to find the center of our top. See, and the inside is even lined too. And go to the front and the back and find that center so that we can gather our skirt and attach it to it. All right. First tier, we're going to gather at the width of our bodice. Okay, now I need to make sure that the gathers are even because they're obviously not even right now. Alright, now I'm going to attach it right sides together to my top. All right, after I sew that on, then we're gonna do the same thing for my second layer. And since I'm using clips, I can go ahead and gather it now and put it together. But if you're using pins or whatever and you think it's gonna come apart, then you wanna sew one layer on and then come back and do it to the next layer. That way you don't, that way it doesn't fall apart on you. We're gonna gather the width of that first layer. Yay, we're almost done. I think this is gonna be so gorgeous. I'm gonna go sew this, then all we have left to do is hem and we'll be done. All right, my friends, how stinking adorable is this dress? This is probably one of my favorite things I've made. I love how it turned out. These flutter sleeves are so in right now, and I think they look adorable. The tiers look so good. I think the height for the top, for the dress turned out amazing. It's just, it looks so good. I love it. I hope you love it as well. Please comment below and let me know what you think. Let me know if you're gonna try it with me. And also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't so you never miss any of our tutorials. I hope you enjoy it and I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll see you next time.